You've watched a humanoid robot throw a punch this week, and there's a real chance you were watching a guy with a controller. That isn't a conspiracy, and it isn't an accusation. It's in the published event rules of the World Humanoid Robot Games, written down in a list and sorted by sport. In Beijing this week, boxing requires full autonomy, which means the robot fights by itself or it doesn't fight at all. Kickboxing permits teleoperation, which means a person is allowed to stand off camera and fly the thing like a drone at the same games. Same tournament, same week, same building in Beijing. One of those events is a robot fighting, the other one is a very expensive puppet with a bruised budget, and the games run them as separate sports on the same schedule. From the outside, both rings in Beijing look identical. Same robots, same helmets, same gloves. The only difference is that in one of those two columns, there's a human being nobody filmed. So I went and read the whole Forbes event list, because at some point somebody has to. Here's the autonomy column: the 100-meter dash, soccer, gymnastics, the dancing events, boxing, tai chi, and table tennis. And here's the other column, 6 entries long, where a driver is legal: hurdles, jumps, weightlifting, kickboxing, the pentathlon, and the obstacle course events. Read those two lists again, because they get funnier the second time. A robot has to think for itself to run 100 meters in a dead straight line, and then it's allowed to be remote controlled over a set of hurdles. It can be flown through the obstacle course in Beijing, which is the one event whose entire point is working out what to do next. Gymnastics is autonomous. Weightlifting has a driver. And I'm not saying any of those calls are wrong, because every one of them has an engineering reason sitting behind it, and I'd bet most of those reasons are safety. What I'm saying is that nobody watching was ever told there are two columns, and the gap between them is the whole gap between a machine and a remote control car with delusions of grandeur. And here's the detail almost nobody knows. The robot fight you've actually seen, the one that went everywhere, sits in the second column. May 2025, and Unitree ran an event called Iron Fist King Awakening. 4 little G1 robots, colored helmets, tiny gloves, full arena production. A G1 stands 4.3 feet tall, so picture a boxing match between angry filing cabinets. Popular Science put it plainly: those 4 fighters were reportedly remotely controlled by human engineers. Both Unitree fighters, driven by people, with short pre-programmed moves in between. And the clip everybody shared is the Iron Fist semi-final, which I want to walk you through properly because it deserves it. The pink-helmeted one, Silk Artisan, takes a kick to the shin, stumbles, and goes down into a full accidental split. The black-helmeted one, AI Strategist, strolls over to its fallen opponent and starts gesticulating at the room, arms going, boastful, absolutely gloating. Human referees are counting Silk Artisan out. Then the gloating robot trips over its opponent's head and falls face first onto the floor. Funniest thing a machine has ever done, and a person did it. Somebody was holding a controller through the gloating and through the trip, and somewhere there's a Unitree engineer who has to live with both. The robot uprising, everybody. Now for the spicy one, and it's the part that actually made me respect the organizers. The games didn't hide the human help, they priced it. In the scenario events, the work events, the ones where a robot has to do an actual job, the games score it like this: competitors get full points by completing events autonomously, but only half points for teleoperation. Half, and it's harsher than it sounds, because if a human intervenes at any point, the entire run gets reclassified as teleoperated, and the whole score is weighted at 0.5. Not the 2 seconds you touched it, the whole run. So run the division. If autonomy is worth double, one human in the loop costs you 50% of everything the robot just did. Now put that next to April 2025 and the Beijing E-Town Half Marathon for humanoid robots, which had the same idea at a much softer price. Remote-controlled teams had their finish time multiplied by 1.2, which is a 20% penalty and nothing worse. Here's my arithmetic, and not theirs. A 1.2 coefficient works out to roughly a 16% advantage for going it alone. 16 months later, at a different event under different rules, the published price of a human went from a haircut to half your score. Those are 2 separate competitions, and I'm not claiming one rule turned into the other. I'm saying somebody in that world looked at 20% and decided it was cheap. And while we're in that marathon rulebook, my favorite line in robotics: swapping in a fresh robot mid-race cost you a 10-minute penalty. Changing the battery was free 3 times, no questions asked. 10 minutes for a substitution, free refuel. That's Formula 1 for things with knees. Which brings me to the part where I have to be straight with you, because a roast only lands if the achievement underneath it is genuine, and this one is. A robot called Tiangong Ultra ran the 100 meters in 9.39 seconds this week. Usain Bolt's world record is 9:58. At the same games last year, the winning 100 meters took 21.50 seconds. That's not an improvement on 2025, that's a different species. Tiangong hit 23.8 miles an hour, crossed the line, and drove straight into a padded wall because nobody had taught it the concept of afterwards. A Wire headline put it better than I can. Robot blazes past Usain Bolt's 100-meter time, then needs a wall to stop. Tiangong stumbled wildly into the sidelines. The other record setter hit the barriers too, and so both of them beat the fastest man alive, and neither of them could stop. Second place was a robot called Lightning at 9:47, built by Honor, the phone company, which means your phone company now builds sprinters. And the 100 meters sits in the autonomy column, which I want to say carefully, that's the published rule for the event. Nobody verified that specific heat in public, so I'm telling you what the Forbes list says, and not what I personally watched. The scale is real too. 2,056 robots showed up in Beijing this year, up 301%. 666 teams entered, which is up 138%. They came from 16 countries across 6 continents. Last year's games had 280 teams and 26 sports. This one runs about 50 events, 30 of them competitive sports. And the 8 I can't stop thinking about are the hand events: power tool assembly, powder weighing, bricklaying, nail fastening, opening caps and lids, unpacking boxes, picking beans up with tweezers, and plugging in cables. Tweezers, beans, that's a metal event at the World Humanoid Robot Games. Which sounds ridiculous until you clock that picking up one bean with tweezers is harder for a machine than outrunning Usain Bolt, and only one of those skills gets you hired. Wang Peng from the Beijing Academy of Social Sciences said it cleanly. Last year, it was about whether they could run to the finish line. This year, it's about whether they can get the job done. So, let's land this. The games did the honest thing because they wrote down how much of this is human, event by event, and then they put a number on it. 3 track events got promoted this year. The 400, the 1/500, and the relay all moved into the autonomy column. The game's rule now says all 3 have to run without remote control. Last year, at the 2025 games, they didn't have to. That's a leaderboard that knows the difference between a robot and a driver and moves the line on purpose every single year. The coverage doesn't. The clip on your feed doesn't. Nothing you watched out of Beijing this week carried a caption telling you which column the event was in. So for the rest of the week in Beijing, when a robot does something incredible in front of you, the question isn't whether it's fake, because it isn't fake. Every one of those 2,056 machines is real. Most of them are doing things nothing could do 3 years ago, and the engineers behind them earned every second of it. The question is which column it was in, autonomous or driven, full points or half. Because right now, that leaderboard isn't ranking robots, it's ranking rules, and the rules are the only part of the World Humanoid Robot Games that nobody bothered to read. So tell me, does a teleoperated robot winning a fight count as a robot winning a fight, or does the guy holding the controller get the medal?